Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Broxten Digital Show. Today, I'm joined by another amazing guest. She comes with a huge amount of experience, super smart, has a great taste in colleges. She's the current vice president of advertising sales at Paramount. Ladies and gentlemen, Matty May is here with me today. How you doing, Matty?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Broxton. I'm very excited.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for coming on the pod. I know you're super busy, so thanks for making time for it. But to kind of get into things here, obviously, Paramount for me has always been a company that I've kind of held pretty high up and just am very impressed by what they've kind of turned into throughout my young life. It wasn't a platform I watched TV shows on or anything like that when I was a kid, and now pretty much it's everywhere. Which, kind of similar to how a career goes. It kind of starts as nothing, nobody knows about it, and next thing you know, you're sitting in a VP of sales role if you do the right things. Um, Another cool thing that I know you're involved in is the MSU ComArts. I mentioned really good taste in college. If you guys didn't know, Maddie is also an MSU grad. She now sits on the ComArts alumni board. So just very passionate about giving back to our generation, and clearly gives her time to do that, being that she's on the alumni board, comes here on a show like this and has these conversations. It's super cool. So I think we're going to learn a lot today, and I'm really excited to get into it. I kind of wanted to start with you being on the alumni board at MSU. It definitely, I'm sure, gives you a very, unique insight into your career. You see the day to day in the industry, and then you're also getting pretty good insight into what's going on with the students. So, like, to kind of start things, I just want to know right now, what do you think the main thing is that students are doing that's kind of made like the job hunt's already hard. It's tough to get a job. It's tough to be doing all these applications. But what would you say is the main thing that students are doing that's making it harder on themselves? Because there's always something like that going on.
Making it harder on themselves. I think one of the things that I've noticed is the laser focus on internships. And while I understand that experience is extraordinary, I think there are opportunities that abound while you're at school. And I can speak to Michigan State, and I will admit, I'm sure we're not the only ones that offer opportunities on campus, through clubs, through working, through just groups that you can get involved with. So I often say to students, like, look around. There's these evergreen opportunities that are set up for you to learn and take advantage of. And I think some people are often looking outside, only outside of their college.
Yeah, 100%. I think like I'm thinking back to when I was a student, and that was totally the memo I got just from basing my experience, like comparing myself to others that are in advertising and also just kind of seeing what's out there on LinkedIn. Like that's what you do in the summer is try to get an internship at some prestigious company. But I actually ended up getting a lot of really good, valuable experience through doing some freelance work with just offering to do some work for free, and then it turned into me having some side business during college. But like you said, there's so many opportunities out there around you, and that's one of the reasons I started this show is just because like sometimes you just don't get told about it, and thinking about things a little bit differently can lead to still making some great experience out of. I mean, it's tough to get like an internship at a large agency or a huge company like Paramount. They're competitive, so there are those other avenues, and that's some great advice.
I do think that part of what you're saying is also applies to when you're looking for jobs, and there was, I think a lot of us feel like there's a lot of cachet and also security that comes with working for a company that our parents might have heard of. But I think that cuts a lot of opportunities out, and there are sometimes more opportunities for college graduates within smaller organizations. Evan Shapiro, who you may or may not heard of, but I often tell people to follow him on LinkedIn. He considers himself a media cartographer, and he talks about the overall media and advertising industry, and speaks a lot about opportunities around creators and what he calls trad media, sort of the legacy media, and other opportunities that are available. And one of the things he said that I pass on to a lot of people is you, as it, not necessarily just a new graduate, but there are a lot of opportunities within small organizations where you get to really grow and do a lot of different things. Where you work for a large organization and you are like, I am in this division and I am in this role, and you might squeak out of that lane a little bit, but you work for a small organization, the CEO is going to know who you are. You are going to be asked to do things that are not in your original remit a lot faster. So the growth trajectory will be huge at a place like that. Yes, you work at a large organization, you can probably network faster, you're going to meet more people, but don't discount smaller organizations. And that goes for when you're in school trying to gather up experience. And the other thing you mentioned is freelancing. And I also say volunteering, like offering your services for free, especially young people who know how to work the socials. And I tell people, if you're networking, see where these people volunteer, and they are volunteering at places that need help, and say, hey, I'd love to do your social media for a summer just to work on my portfolio. That again can give you more responsibility and more stats, because a lot of the places I volunteer has to do a lot with fundraising, and you can be the one that is helping raise X amount of dollars, and it doesn't have to be at a large advertising agency to do so.
Yeah, those are some great points, and I totally agree. It's just like there's pros and cons to anywhere you end up, but the one thing that I feel like students need to get out of their head is like it's internship or go live at home and mow lawns for the summer. Like there's so much you can do to get that experience. And you brought up another great point of just like offer some work for free and see where it goes. Like I don't think a lot of people realize that there are just hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in the US of small business owners and nonprofit like directors that have no idea how to do social media, websites, anything like that. So offering some free work to somebody like that is gonna be some great experience. Like I know in my interviews when I was looking for agency jobs, I was able to speak on, hey, I have that experience speaking with clients. I get trying to put out a fire with a client, where, maybe at an internship, you probably don't even get to talk to the client. So
Right.
just
A
pros and
hundred
cons
percent.
everywhere.
100%, Broxton. And I don't think, as somebody, that has hired people before, I don't think it matters if you get paid for it or not. It's just the experience that you can talk to. So, and when you're in college and hopefully have a place to land over the summer, you can maybe still mow the lawns for the cash and then grow your network and grow your experience at the same time. So I think there are so many more opportunities than just the big internships.
Yeah, 100%. I think just like you said, like maybe do a little bit of both. The biggest problem you run into is like you graduate, have no like really real experience, and then expect to be able to compete with these people who maybe possibly did 4 internships at, marquee companies in the industry. It's just going to be hard to compete, but who knows, maybe some of your scrappy, more small business experience might actually put you ahead of one of those people who only have that large corporate experience. Did you have any internships or anything like that when you were at MSU?
No, that's a good question. So I am a graduate of 1994, so it's been a very long time. And internships were still talked about then, but it wasn't like, you wrap up your freshman year and you're already concerned about an internship. It was not like that at all. I did have an opportunity to work with a very small local advertising agency, you could call it Creative Media Inc., that was in Okemos, and they were a bunch of MSU grads that taught me. I did a lot of like writing for them, and but yeah, so I had an internship for one. But my biggest thing that I did was I worked for the state news for most of my time at MSU, and in the advertising sales department for display, and that was unbelievable experience. So that's again where I say that there's just the beginnings of figuring out what you're good at and what you can do happen at college.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I can't imagine like sitting where you're sitting and looking back and being like, man, if I never had that job at the newspaper, I don't know if I'd be here right now. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
I
true.
will, while we're on the topic of MSU students, college students, I am curious now because, I've been graduated for a little bit over a year now. It's crazy how fast that's already gone
Yeah.
by. But what would you say right now, especially at MSU, in ComArts, what are they doing that's really helping set those students apart from maybe the rest of the graduates going into advertising and marketing?
I think, and again, you mentioned it, Broxton, being on the alumni board, I get to hear from the dean and I get to hear about the investments that are being made in the college and what some of the differentiators are. And I have met some of the administration as well as a few of the professors. And I think one of the things that set MSU apart then and definitely now is these professors of professional practice, people who have been in the business, people who know people in the business. You and I both said Julie Beatty is like a shining star at the College of ComArtSci because she knows people in the industry. She brings people from the industry into the classroom. So she, on one hand, and I will also say the Career Center for ComArtSci, Randy and Cody, they're very dedicated to helping people network. And then the other is that nobody's like just focusing on, yes, there are basics of advertising that have remained the same, but it's all about what is the latest and the newest certifications in programmatic. Like, it's not you walk out of there and know how to create a print ad. Like, it's what's happening now. And I give MSU a lot of credit for working with professors and teachers and resources that are current and relevant, that prepare people to be great contributors to this industry as Spartans.
Yeah, I definitely think you nailed it there. That was like the biggest thing I noticed, especially now out in the industry for almost a year, talking to people who have come from other schools, is like MSU really did give you that insight into this is kind of what it's going to taste like when you're in the industry a little bit. These are going to be the day-to-day interactions you have rather than like, I've talked to some other grads from other schools and it's like, yeah, we learned like email marketing and print and display and that was kind of, we got some Google certifications. There's just so much more to it than that. But kind of like you said, having those, ex-industry professionals as the professors is just such a game changer. Like thinking back, I know like I had Greg Toucher and Ross Chowles. Both of those guys had insane advertising careers. Like I remember Google, like I looked them up on like Rate My Professor, and I was like, oh my god, this dude is like a storied advertising guy. Like I should be asking him for career advice too, not just as a professor. So
And I think what comes with people like Tauscher and Julie and such is that they just love it. Like, they love the business, and there's a lot of passion and energy around that, which is what students deserve, is, to be aligned with people who are as passionate about what they're figuring out what their passions are. And I think MSU is just I remember when I went to Michigan State for advertising. I'm not from Michigan, like, so it was like this was 30 years ago, and they've been not done nothing but continue to be a leader in this space, along with journalism and PR and everything in that communications building.
yeah, it's pretty insane. Even the 4 years I was there, 2021 through 2025, just the development and like improvements to the ComArts building and everything like that. Like there's clearly a goal to grow that, and I it just speaks to how you hear.
Still ugly. It's still ugly, and we know that. And we joke with the dean, like, why can't we get a pretty building? But she's like, well, help alumni give us money so we can have a pretty building. But what's happening inside that boring brick building is amazing things, which
That
is what really
Alienware Gaming
matters.
Center, oh my
Yes,
goodness, that
that
thing is
is
so
sweet.
cool.
That is sweet. Something you always take people through on the tour.
Yes, I loved grabbing a game of Fortnite in between classes. I was
Amazing.
notorious
You're
for
right.
it. But yeah,
Very cool.
so I mean, like I was saying earlier, obviously just super into giving back, serving on the alumni board, and obviously paying attention while you're in it too, being able to speak on, what are students actually experiencing, how is the dean managing things, like you're involved there. And then, like I said earlier, just coming on the show, you do a little bit of life coaching, lots of things of you just, pouring into others. I guess I'm just kind of curious, like, one, why do you do that so much, just for somebody who may not know? And then kind of what is the value in giving back been throughout your career?
I think the main thing is one of my favorite things to do is to connect with people and then to bridge people to other people. So if I can get paid to be a connector, I would be doing that. So I love to just do it in my spare times from like a service perspective, because it's easy for me to meet with people and then I don't know, it's a bit of who I am. That it's like, oh, I know somebody that you should talk to, and I get a lot of joy and satisfaction out of that. When it comes to Michigan State, I came from, my mom stayed at home. My dad was a dentist. I knew nobody in this business, so I owe my whole career to Michigan State and the networks. I got my first job through networking through Michigan State. So if I believe you should pay things forward like that, and who am I to not help people that are in that same boat? And I guess I would say, as mentioned earlier, I do think this business is pretty fantastic. So if I can help people learn more about it and navigate their way through it, I would do that. And I think that being a service-oriented leader and contributor is just the right way to walk on this earth, really.
Yeah, I mean, just from like a moral standpoint, that is definitely the best way to carry yourself. But I mean, like that just, speaks to why anybody at any point in their career should be doing that. I think we can relate quite a bit. I'm a first generation college student. My mom's a nurse, my dad's a finished carpenter. Nothing to do with advertising, no professional
Yeah.
connections out in the corporate world. And kind of like your experience, like MSU is the reason I'm here right now. So it's just, I can't help but try to help other people who are in the same situation. That was the whole goal of starting this show, was just like, there has to be people sitting in that same seat that I was a year ago. Why not do something to help them? So it's
Yeah,
so
you
cool, and I hope,
definitely.
yeah, and I just hope this show and bringing people on like you can just inspire others to kind of do the same. Because I mean, that's how things have gotten to where they are today, and only way they're going to keep improving.
Yeah, I think that that positive and supportive energy that you're putting out was definitely infectious and will draw a lot of people to your conversations. And I don't think you're somebody or I'm somebody that does this to gain anything later, but it is about just putting out positive, good, connecting energy, just helping people. It feels really good.
Yeah, and like what I've come to find out, you mentioned like doing it with the idea of having some gain later on, is like the good stuff, just you put the good inputs in, the good stuff kind of comes to you in return. Like it just kind of happens.
Exactly
Um,
what I was trying to say, much better than I did. So you're a more recent graduate of the ComArtSci. So well done. Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, obviously it can take longer than you want. Would I love my YouTube views to be 10x what they are right now? Yes, but also at the same time, if I help two or three students with one of these videos, like, I'm
Right.
pretty happy with that.
Right.
But now I kind of want to get in. We've talked a lot about MSU, college, kind of how the college students can leverage things. I want to kind of get into, what you're actually doing in your day job and everything like that, because I'm super curious about that. And I was applying to roles at Paramount when I was a senior. Didn't work out, obviously. Ended up over in the agency side, but just a super cool company that's got a lot of cool stuff going on. That UFC partnership is what I mainly keep my eyes on. I'm a huge UFC nut. But what would you maybe recommend to the students or young pros who have a company like that on their radar? Like, what are maybe kind of the secrets to getting into something like that?
I think, you said you've done over 20 of these conversations, so what I say might be somewhat repetitive to other people. I do think it is true. A lot of it is who you know. So I think pie in the sky is not a bad thing. If you have a company that's a dream company, find out who, first of all, who you might be connected to that could be connected to somebody there. Then once I think the other thing is sort of be open to any opportunity that is there. You might think, okay, I'm going to start, and I am an ad major, so is there an advertising component to this organization? And that might be a little too narrow-minded. So maybe you open yourself up to sales or something in a different division and could get you working with the organization. Some teams and divisions have more opportunities than others for recent college grads. So I think to kind of open the aperture a bit when you're looking at an organization and be a little open. I think when it comes to starting your career, it should be looked at as where would I want to start versus what do I need to do, or landing it like the greatest place ever. It's just where do I want to start? And that could be, hey, I started with Nike because it was my dream organization, but I happened to start in, I don't know, in marketing versus social or whatever, to just get your foot in the door. I think is a good way to do it. I think another thing is be prepared when you're networking to answer the question, why Paramount? Like, and some people, you and I were talking earlier, and you mentioned just now the UFC being something you're really passionate about, to probably answer that question and be like, yeah, and know some details on it. Like, I know that you bought the rights, in said year and what you paid for that, and maybe have some smart follow-up questions on that. So it kind of really backs up why you're interested. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer for why Paramount. I have asked people that, and they could say because SpongeBob is the greatest thing in the world, and I've watched every single SpongeBob episode, and to me that is better than someone being like, I don't know, or it's a brand I've heard of. Like, so it can be an emotional connection. It could also be Another great answer would be is you are a company that has recently been acquired and is fighting the good fight to be a legacy media company that thrives as a tech organization moving forward. So it's a very exciting place to be, to make that shift and watch the new people that are being brought into this organization as like project managers and engineers and tech agents, when usually we were all about programming and advertising. So, and that you can't really survive in this world as a traditional media company and compete against, the Amazons of the world if you are not leveling up when it comes to tech. So I know I kind of got off base, but to understand as much as you can about the company that you want to work at. And then, like, if you're really focused on a dream organization, you can make it part of your elevator pitch. I often tell people when they're looking for jobs and they are networking, don't think that networking, are in these little Zoom boxes, or when you are setting up a coffee chat. You can network when you are going to the dentist and they do the old, oh, so you're graduating. What are you going to do after graduation? You can kind of have it down like, whether it's I want to move to Chicago, I want to stay in Detroit, I want to work in London, or my dream is to work for Paramount. Do you know anybody who works there in your network? Just to ask everyone around. So that's another way to get if you've got the dream organizations, or if you have the dream city, or I think if people are really eager to help people, but you kind of have to help them help you. And that's a way to do it if you want to pinpoint a Paramount.
That last point is so true of like you have to provide that initial little bit of value before you expect somebody to just pour into you. But it's pretty crazy. I found out is like you do provide a little bit of value to somebody who maybe, more established in their career, in a position of, referring you to people. The second they realize, you're actually in it to just be a good person and not trying to get a connection or a referral out of them, usually they're willing to, help you with whatever you may need. So, but like you said, that first trick is providing that little bit of value, with the way you elevator pitch yourself or ask your questions.
Yeah, I think provide the value, and then I think the big part is make it easy for them to help you. So, I have met with people that are equally friendly and charismatic, but it's harder to help somebody that's like, I'll do anything, which a lot of people will do anything. But they can give me a little more like, I'm really looking at New York, or I'd like to start an agency, or strategy is more important to me. Because then I can be like, okay, I'll send you down this path, versus, me not knowing where to start. Sometimes that ends up being too heavy of a load for people. And they don't get back to you, or they're not going to help. So just a tidbit there.
No, yeah, that's great advice. And like I think there might be a common misconception with a lot of students and young professionals of like you need to do all this research for interviews, you need to have all this ammunition ready for interviews, but then if you're having coffee chats with people who work at the company you're interviewing with, like you should also have that stuff ready for them. I just recently had a buddy who also works at an agency, had an MSU student reach out to him and was like, "Hey, can I just, hop on and pick your brain? I'm interested in the company you work at and just want to learn more about it." And they got on the call and the dude was like, "Yeah, I really just wanted to meet you. I don't really have any questions prepared." And my friend was like, "What is this? Like, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell my boss not to hire you if anything." So like, prepping for those coffee chats, you never know what they're gonna lead to or like what that person's gonna go off and say about you. Who knows? 20 minutes later, they might be talking to somebody who could be your future boss. So just always something to keep in mind.
Yeah, again, and so cool that you and your friend are already experiencing that, like being on the other side of the coffee chats. And it is disappointing because the ones where they come prepared just with some questions makes it an easier conversation, and you can understand each other's personalities and really be able to help each other out. But it should never be on the person you're meeting with to like pull teeth from the person that's like asked for the meeting. So yeah, that's an excellent point, Broxton. That the coffee chats, bare minimum, be prepared with some questions.
At least show that you care,
You know,
And I think that's it's funny you say that. The thing popping in my head is like, you get a coffee chat, it's not your free life coach. It's somebody who's willing to help you if you're a good person and kind of bring the same, they're probably gonna match your energy. But speaking of
right?
life coaching, I know you also do some actual life coaching, which I thought
Mhm.
was super cool and definitely like I can't even fathom what that must be like hearing somebody all their problems and trying to help them out with that. So one, I mean, I would just like to hear from your life coaching, what do you think is like one of your main insights of something that, people could maybe work on at home or work on by themselves to just make their lives better that you see a lot of people maybe getting caught or stuck up in?
Yeah. So I got certified as a coach back in 2019. Again, it kind of just came from enjoying helping people, understanding more about why people are the way they are. I manage a lot of people, and it helps me as a manager as well within Paramount. And there are plenty of tricks, but because of who you are and where we are and the name of this trick, I will share it with you. What we tend to a lot of coaching is about perception and changing people's perception, and how can you look at things a little bit differently. Like, I'm stuck and the world is against me. All right, why are you stuck? Where do you want to be? How can you look at this problem differently? Like, you can find your way over any hurdle, but what we tend to do sometimes is make up a story in our head that really puts us behind the eight ball. And the tool is called MSUing, which I learned through one of my coach trainings, and I was like, I kind of perked up. I'm like, oh, that sounds good to me, MSUing. And it stands for making stuff up. And like, so you start to make stuff up. So in your life, let's say, like, I said something on the group chat and now nobody's saying anything. Oh my God, I pissed somebody off. I'm getting cut off of this group. They all are going to go out tonight without me. That's making stuff up. Yeah, so you just need to stop and like ground yourself in the facts. The facts are, I said something and nobody responded. So there could be many of other stories. So then you can also use the power of MSUing a little bit in that, like, live as if the world was rigged in your favor. So it's like, well, they're not responding to me because they're out buying me a birthday cake and they want to surprise me later. Or, I'm not hearing back about this job application because they're trying to find me more money. Like, you can turn it into a positive, but we really tend to talk ourselves into being stuck and thinking there's no way out and thinking the world is against us. So that's one. And then I'd say another trick that I use a lot is it's really about like the power of thought, which is very similar to MSUing. Like, your thoughts kind of lead to your feelings, which then lead to your actions, which lead to your results. So if you think I'm never going to get a job, that leaves you feeling uninspired, maybe weak, sad, defeated. If you feel that way, what are you going to do? Nothing. You're like, my action is probably nothing. Maybe I'll apply for, some jobs and not really be positive, and the result's nothing going to happen. But if your initial thought is, I have a lot to offer, I am excited to be in this industry. It might take a while, but I'm going to go out there. You feel empowered and you feel excited, and then your actions are, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to get as many coffee chats as possible, and then the result will be employed a lot sooner than the first talk track.
Yeah, no, that is some killer advice. And just like my biggest takeaway there is like perspective is everything, and you have total control of your perspective. So it's just something that can get so out of hand. I'm really curious though, did becoming a life coach, how did that kind of translate to either help or hurt you in your career? I'm sure it hasn't hurt you, but maybe there are some hurdles you've had to jump over with it.
I'm trying to think about that. I know how it's definitely helped me um, in all areas of my life. Like, when I first was trained, I thought, if I never have a client, I am going to be a better partner, a better parent, a better boss. Like, just understanding how people are and how they work. I mean, we all still have to learn a lot, but like, just have a whole different perspective on people's energy and like what they need. And I don't think it has hurt me. It's probably, I'm tired because I do it on the side, and there are some times that I'm like, I don't want to be continuing to stay certified and educate myself and all that, but I do because I like to constantly learn about that, and don't want to get out of the coaching game. But that would probably be the only downside, is really just it being a side hustle when I do this other job.
Right. I'm curious too, if you don't mind me asking, like, what inspired you to do it? Were you like previously somebody who used a life coach and realized how valuable it was, or did you just always feel this calling, or what was it?
It's an interesting question. I think a lot. I think everyone knows that this advertising business is changing so quickly, and there's been a lot of construction and a lot of layoffs. And speaking to Paramount in particular, we've had a lot of them. So I think it was a plan B. What will I do when when I get laid off? What do I want to do? So I did hire a coach to kind of think about it, and I often when like facilitators or trainers or coaches would come to Paramount and we'd have meetings and stuff, I'd always be like, that looks really fun, and so I just went with it from there and thought it was something that could be a nice overlap, and that was a while ago. So I've still hung on to my job at Paramount, but this has helped me in the meantime.
No, that's so cool. I mean, it just goes to show like something you jump on as a small opportunity one day, you never really know what it's going to turn into, and that's so cool. I mean, I definitely am curious to learn more about life coaching. That's definitely something I've thought about of like, man, I maybe could use one, but then you always kind of have those maybe like limiting beliefs in your head of like, oh, I don't need a life coach or how could they help me? But I don't know, I definitely see the value in it for sure.
Yeah, and limiting beliefs, that's definitely a coaching term. That you can use them for many. I call myself a life and leadership coach. I really like to talk about leadership and how you lead your own life. And there's different, there's all these different assessments, which is sort of like corporate astrology, which is super fun. I think it's just about investing in yourself and understanding yourself in a different way at different points in your life. And it doesn't necessarily have to be when things are not going well. It could be like, I'd like to level up, and how I'm going to invest in myself a little bit of time and effort to really take a hard look at how I'm thinking at the opportunities that are ahead for me. So that's the other thing I love about it is helping these people often makes me, and most coaches will say this, like take a look at myself. So it's like if they're talking about said topic, you're like, oh, this kind of resonates with me too. But maybe I should, take another look at my situation. So it does get you in the ring on lots of different topics to continue to improve.
Yeah, that's so cool. I think that's something that like is one of the biggest struggles with humanity and just people in general is like it's so hard to look at yourself in the mirror and really like break down here's what I'm doing, what's bad, what's good, what can I improve, without having somebody like a life coach kind of help you walk through it. So the fact that
Yeah.
you're able to do that, do you still have a life coach now, or are you able to just kind of like you feel
I
like you got it going
actually,
on?
no, I have one right now.
Okay.
I go through like if I have one, if I don't, the company sometimes offers some. So we are working through Thrive, and they had offered one. I always like scramble to sign up for any of the free offerings. I know a lot of coaches, so sometimes I'll be like, will you just like coach around with me for a little bit on this? So it is we're always a work in progress, all of us.
Yeah, 100%. Well, sorry to go so deep on your side hustle, but I was just so interested. When I saw that on your LinkedIn, I was like, oh my God, what a cool little thing to be doing, as well as being the VP of sales at Paramount.
Thank you for asking. I also, to tie it back to advertising, I think it is advertising is the art of persuasion, and that is understanding consumer behavior and understanding how people work and what they need, like can align. Like so much of coaching too is about like accountability also matched with empathy and understanding, and I think that there's a lot of that in advertising, and then I've mostly been in sales my whole career, so in sales as well.
Yeah, they definitely go hand in hand, especially in the sales world, which I'm happy you brought up because I kind of wanted to round things out here before we get into the fun stuff by for anybody who, may be listening that is interested in ad sales, you hear all the different things. There's, be a creative, go work at a big agency, go client side, go ad sales at a vendor. And as a student, you're kind of like, I have no idea what that even really is. Like, I know my perspective of advertising sales when I was a senior in college to now meeting some people who work in the field is totally different. It's not what I thought it was at all. So if you could just like brief high level summary maybe of like what you do, kind of how your day to day looks, and maybe to the student who's super interested in sales, what are some things they can start doing to, upskill and get more educated?
Yeah, this is when I get to go to MSU and talk. That's usually what I've been asked to do is like talk about ad sales, and it's one of my favorite things when somebody comes up and is like, "Oh my God, you just described something I think I actually want to do in this business." So my current job is I sit in Chicago and I manage a team that manages the Paramount and Publicis relationship in Chicago. So any of the Publicis agencies and clients that are looking to invest in Paramount properties, aka buying into the UFC on Paramount Plus or the VMAs on MTV, they work with us and we provide that for them. So there's many different levels at the organization, starting with our support staff, which is usually where the opportunities lie for incoming college graduates, and that's sort of a post-sale management, managing the stewardship of an account. We said we'd guarantee 50 million impressions. Are we doing that? You have a relationship with the agency, so there's a lot of autonomy there at that first role, and then from there, you move up into account management and sales, where you are frontline pitching and carrying a budget and being responsible for moving what is important to our organization, but also, and really most importantly, focusing on what our clients need and how we can be an answer for their burning questions. So how you can be, I think some of the skills that are most important for sales, I think number one is communication, all around communication. So that is the written word, that is your responsiveness, that is your presentation skills, and then probably the most important is the listening, is hearing what they're saying, reading between the lines, hearing what they're not saying, and continuing to ask the right questions so you can be of service and get out ahead of your competitors, but also any issues that might be coming up. Which again, I said we're all a work in progress. Like, we learn how not to do things every day. I won't do that again, and that still happens to me, and I've been working for 30 plus years. So I don't know if I answered your question. I think I did.
No, you totally did. And I think that's one of my favorite parts about the sales trajectory career is like you kind of start at the bottom, got to figure things out, and then next thing you're pitching these insane deals to these crazy like, super high up people that you probably never thought you'd be in the same room with. So, super high stakes. I'm a big sports guy, so like I did a sales internship in college, and sales and
Oh, you
sports kind
did?
of always went hand in hand. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was not advertising related. I did a
right.
door-to-door sales internship, and it was brutal. I was out in Cali knocking doors in LA. But I think like it built the chops of I can be told no a million times, and I'm gonna keep trying.
I think 100%, and I will, again, I'm a salesperson, but I think you will refer to that internship more in your career than you would ever imagine. Like, knowing rejection and tenacity, I think, comes with sales. And I think back to what we were talking about earlier, one of the things I love about sales is you're essentially helping people. I know you're up against a quota and there's a lot of stress and your company's always barking at you to like sell more, but really the essence is I am helping an agency or a client fix their problem, fill their need. And I have always been on this side. I think on the agency side, you are also servicing clients, but you have to say no to a lot of vendors. And I would rather be a yes person and take the no's on this side than have to like turn down people on the regular.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, for the people listening that are trying to piece all this together, what Maddie's saying is true, is like just how she's servicing the people at the agencies or sometimes the clients, that is me being at the agency. I'm doing the same thing to my clients. So like I would say if you're somebody who does really well in the agency role and is able to service your client really well, you'd probably be able to translate those skills to sales. Would you agree?
I would totally agree, or be a big part of the new business team at the agencies, because that's essentially sales for those companies. Yeah, and so
And I
many people cross over.
Yeah, and I mean that's just the beauty of advertising, right? Is like there's just so many routes you can go with just getting, like you said earlier at the beginning of the pod, like just get your foot in the door. And then really the opportunities are unlimited of where you can end up. The amount of people I've talked to that started their career not doing anything related to advertising and now they're sitting in a pretty crazy advertising position is honestly really surprising.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's really great is if you love advertising, you can do it in many different scopes. You can go work for a small radio station in the mountains if that's where you want to live, or you can work on global pieces of business. So you can be a part of advertising anywhere, anyhow, which I think is great too. You don't just have to live in a big city and work for a big brand.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's so cool how it's an industry where you really can, like, it might not happen right away, but you really can work on what you're passionate about. Like, for example, my mom's a nurse. Her job's always going to be taking care of old people at the geriatric center that she's worked her way up through. I could one day, I work on Stellantis now, and then who knows, maybe in a couple months or something, I'm working on Coca-Cola because that's what I want to do, or, some other crazy client that's way smaller that I really am passionate about. But it's just cool how there's that opportunity where a lot of other careers, a lot of other industries, you're kind of siloed into that one thing you do, and, that's what you do.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a great point. And I think just different, you can use the same skills and continue to get new tools and new skills, but across many different types of business. So you, at the agency side, again, you're working right now on one account, but you work with many different vendors and, on many different platforms. I work at one company, but I work with many different clients, so there's like different ways to not get bored. And, the other piece about advertising that I think is great too is that there's sort of a large industry community, and that there are organizations to get involved with to foster more connection and areas to network and get excited about what's happening. And there's always a panel. Yes, you can talk about the cans, and I myself have never got to go to Cannes, but back to MSU, rah rah, they take kids to Cannes, which is amazing, amazing. But Chicago Advertising Federation is amazing. It's been around over 100 years, and it's the greatest place to connect with people socially and professionally.
Yeah, I totally agree. We got a similar vibe over here with AdCraft Detroit,
Aircraft,
super
yep. Mhm.
old, super huge organization that just, like you said, just like really fosters an awesome community. And like, I have a decent amount of friends who graduated into engineering, graduated into finance, different career paths, and you just don't hear about that in a lot of other industries of like, oh yeah, once or twice a week we're getting together and talking about the newest stuff and having drinks. Like, it's awesome being a part of that culture. And I think like COVID definitely messed some of it up. I know like the stories I heard in college of how advertising used to be was pretty cool, and now it's exciting though too because I think we're finally starting to get back into that pre-COVID. Like,
Yeah,
let's have some fun and make this industry fun again.
yeah.
No,
Stupid
that's so
can.
cool. Yeah, for real. Um, but yeah, no, that was awesome. That was a great breakdown of ad sales for like anybody interested, that is pretty much what you need to know is what Maddie was just talking about here for the last few minutes. And now to kind of get into my favorite part of the show, which is the rapid fire value segment. What we will do is just go through some quick questions. First thing that comes to mind, shoot me straight, and the goal is just to provide as much value as possible. You know, so to get started, there'll be a mix, some fun ones and some serious ones. But to get started, we'll start more on the professional side. What would you say right now in your day to day is the number one tool that you're using that, actually moves the needle, isn't just something that looks cool?
Um, I definitely, I mean, this is lame. I would say AI, and just every day doing it differently. We hear
Which one do you
our,
use?
I use Claude and Copilot,
Okay.
both because that's sort of what the company okayed to use. So, um, yeah, so it's finding new and different ways to use that. I think, like most of us, we sort of started off with using it for writing and, how can I tighten this up? But I use it also for management sometimes. Like if I'm like, oh, I'm in this pickle and I'm thinking of presenting it this way, like what are your, almost like a coach. Sometimes I use it. And then now we're just sort of, now that we have like okay by Paramount to be dumping Paramount stuff into this, and we can actually like start using it for Excel and you know analyses and year over year reporting and where are the holes and where should we be. And also ways to just understand my clients better too.
100%. And I know you like originally answered like it might be a basic answer or something, but I honestly think like doing what you're doing, like you said, just finding new ways to make yourself work better at work with AI, trying to do that once a week or every day, that is probably one of the most valuable things you can be doing right now because I think in 5 to 10 years, it's going to be expected that you know how to use these tools and you know how to move the needle with them. So I think that was a great answer. And I'm also so jealous that y'all get access to Claude. I've been pressing for that.
Yeah, that sort of just happened, and I think what I like to do, and most of us do, is to ask the whole team, how are you using it? Because we all have, again, back to the perspective. When that comes up on the screen, like some people are like, oh, I'm instantly going to think of asking this or pulling this in. So we have like everything. You have people who are more ahead of the game in certain areas, and then you definitely have. It's one of the things that I find interesting talking to kids coming out of college is you're sort of like trained to not use it in so many spaces that there's almost a trepidation around using it. So, and that is just of this space and time. Like you guys are in school when all of this is happening. So you're a little bit like, can't touch it, you know, and it's like, no, no, you can for this. So it's interesting.
Yeah, no, I remember those days of being told like we will know if you write this with AI,
Right.
and now it's
Right.
like you better have written this with AI and not wasted our
Right.
time. So
Exactly. Exactly. Whiplash. My God.
definitely.
Yeah.
But anyways, no, that great answer, and I definitely think anybody listening, take that advice, start using these tools, hop on the two that Maddie just mentioned, and start poking around. Like having that knowledge and being able to speak on it, whether it's in an interview, to your boss, whatever, it's gonna make you more valuable. But now to kind of switch up, do a little more fun a question here. What would you say, whether it's your favorite spot now or back in the day when you were a student, what is the best spot in East Lansing right now?
Like off campus.
Anywhere. What's your favorite spot to hit when you're back in town?
Well, okay, so I had a new one and an old one. Like I was a PTs person. Like I loved PTs. That was my bar of choice. Um, but I've been up there a bit because of the alumni work I do. This new Savvy Sliders, we do not have that in Chicago. Holy cow! It's amazing. Do you know what I'm talking about? Was it there when
Yeah,
you
they're
were there?
everywhere in Michigan. We got them all
Oh
over
my
Detroit.
gosh. It's so good. I ate there. I stayed at the hotel right there, and I ate there twice in 24 hours. I'll admit it, Broxton. It was delicious.
That's
So,
hilarious. I mean, I always grew up with the idea of like sliders equals White
uh,
Castle, and the first time I tried
right,
Savvy,
right,
I was like, "Oh my God, I like
right.
sliders."
That levels up a lot from a White Castle. Yes, just excellent. So I was almost like, how can we franchise this and get this over to Chicago?
That's awesome. Yeah, well, I'm sure they'll end there because end
I
up
hope
there
so.
because they are
I
so
hope so.
popular in Michigan right now.
Yeah, yeah.
But to kind of get on to the next one, what would you say right now would be the number one hard skill that you'd recommend students, young professionals to be focusing on? There's so many of them out there.
Honestly, think a hard skill. Um, I would say, I think I would go to AI. I think it's coming up in all the conversations that I would not be surprised if it gets asked in many interviews. How are you using it? How would you teach our team how to do it? I think there's a lot of reverse mentorship opportunities for young people coming into this business. I was just talking to somebody who told me that his son got a job at Accenture, like, you know, consulting, and that they're hiring all these really, they often hire young people for consulting, but it's about the AI. And they're like, we don't, you know, if everybody's, you guys are the closest to learning about it. I will also say we're all learning in real time. But so I think the hard skill is knowing as much as you can about AI.
Yeah, and I mean that is a hard skill. It's something that if you spend 20, 30, literally just like 20, 30 minutes on it a day, like you look back 3 months after that and you're gonna be like so much like just more upskilled and have such a better idea. And it's really not a huge lift, I feel like, to do a small amount every day. So it's a great answer. And I know like you probably think it's repetitive, but that's like one of the things with this show is like we need to repeat these things. Like people need to be reminded so much more than they need to be told something new. Like it's really just that reminder that you need, at
Very
least in my opinion for me.
Very wise words.
Um, but now we'll kind of, so now you're in the Chicago office. I usually, typically my guests either are in Detroit, Chicago, New York, or
Yeah.
LA. That's, those are the
Okay.
advertising hubs.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
we get our opinions on New York pizza, Detroit style pizza. What would you say in Chicago? And now I will take either a hot dog place or a pizza place, but what is the best in Chicago? Where are you going? Where are you recommending?
Oh God. Um, I would say hot dog would be Wrigley, and that's really the place I eat the most hot dogs, and I do it the Chicago style. So that is, as we say, drag through the garden with the pickle and the onions and the tomato and the hot peppers and the mustard and the celery salt and the relish. Um, I mean, pizza. I think I'm one who says there's not a bad pizza place in town. I eat it all. My kids both worked at Lou Malnati's, so I got to go with Lou's.
Okay, yeah, that's totally fair. Definitely would be
Yeah.
biased. I'm sure you were eating that a lot when you were a
Yeah.
parent then, like when the kids were in the
Yes.
house. That's funny. No, I know I went to Chicago last summer and all the food
Yeah.
I had there was amazing. Like even
Yeah.
just a Chicago dog from a random vendor on the street was like so good. So that's awesome. And I always like hearing about the food culture in different cities. I like to have a list of places to hit whenever I'm visiting. So what would you say right now, even if you're not using it, but I know you get that insight with students being on the alumni board. What would you say is the best free or low cost learning resource that students just might be sleeping on? They don't know about it.
I mentioned him before, and I don't think he, like, I'm not getting paid by him. I think Evan Shapiro is such an amazing resource for information and where this business is going. I would follow him on LinkedIn and look at some of his pinned videos. And he talks a lot about the creator universe and how many opportunities for employment exist within this creator universe. So I think it sort of blows this industry up even more and gets people more excited about places they can work. And if you tie that back to his tip about you don't have to work for these humongous organizations, that you will be somebody learning a lot and doing a lot. So he's one. And then one podcast that I love is called The Town. I don't know if you've heard about that one. Matthew Belloni, I always say his name wrong, but he used to be a writer for, I think, The Hollywood Reporter, and he's a lawyer. But it's about the industry as a whole. It's not necessarily just advertising, but advertising is included. So it's about media, it's about the movies. They're like 30 to 40 minutes, a couple times a week. But he'll talk about big things like talks about they talk about Paramount a lot, with us trying to acquire Warner Brothers, so they'll talk about that, but they'll also talk about like are people going to the movies and like what's going to happen to theatrical releases. So it's really it's an interesting, and he gets on a lot of very smart people.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely will have to check that out. I always love a good podcast recommendation. So that's so cool. I definitely will be giving that one a look. To kind of go back to the fun side of things, though, obviously in the Detroit scene, I work in the auto industry section of advertising. When you broke in, when you were, sitting in my seat, first role, what were you driving, and what did that lead to you driving now as a
Oh,
VP of
I love
sales?
it. That's such a Detroit question.
It is.
I love it. My first car was a Pontiac Grand Am. So it wasn't great, but that's what I had. And then we live in the city in Chicago, so we have four drivers and one car. So it is a Volvo XC90, but I'm a big public transportation person, so I take the train a lot and the bus.
Talk to either whether it's from Chicago or New York, it's like I have a car, but I try to take
Yeah,
it out as little as possible.
yeah, yeah. Especially now with how much gas is and stuff too. So,
Oh my God,
but
yeah,
yeah,
for real.
yeah. Great
No,
question.
yeah, that's awesome to hear. Yeah, it's always funny to hear, some people get super into it and go through, 50 cars in their career, and then other people are like, I just need to get to point A to point B. So it's always been amusing to me.
Yeah, and I'm not, and I know people in, well, all over the place, but definitely people in Michigan who are a little bit more into their automobile, but I've never really been that person.
That's fair. I mean, it's a lot cheaper to be somebody who's not into it.
True, but you do want it to work, and you want to get from point A to point B, and not have to like have it be a lemon or anything like that. So yeah,
Yes, and keep up on your oil changes for sure.
yes, good
So this is
tip.
the last one I got for you, Maddie, and I know you
Okay.
already mentioned one person already, but who would you say are, two to three people that you think every student, young professional should be following and interacting with on LinkedIn? Whether, be an influencer, creator, or even just somebody in the industry who you think puts out some really valuable content.
Oh my goodness. Uh, yeah, Evan's definitely my go-to. Hess, I mean, you've met with Hess, and I think he is somebody great to follow because he spends a lot. He's very passionate about college graduates and giving, and putting his advice there. I think that. I'm gonna think about that for a second. Um, who are I think following organizations, definitely following, I mean, they're my biggest client, but anything Publicis is putting out, they're on the forefront of a lot of things. So following the individual brands of their agencies. If you have, I'm trying to think. I subscribe to a newsletter by the gentleman by the name of Shelley Palmer, and that's about a lot of AI. So that's kind of an interesting one too. Kind of, will give me tricks to start to use on the AI platforms as well.
No,
I know
that's
I'm
super
gonna like
cool.
remember more people later, but that's what came to mind.
You're all good. I mean, that's super cool. I mean, everybody has their people that they just like, ooh, the way that person presents information really clicks with me. So I always ask that just because you never know who you're going to find or connect with that could be like a huge unlock for what you're working on. And one question I'll wrap up on is it cool with everybody watching? Can they connect with and interact with you on LinkedIn?
I
Okay.
am very guilty of meeting with everybody that reaches out. Sometimes takes a long time, but I will get to you, and I'm happy to help any way that I can.
Well, that is so awesome to hear, Maddie. And to anybody out there listening right now, like, really would advise hitting her up. She literally just said she is, a chronic say yes to a meeting person. So definitely take advantage of that. Some professionals will just ignore you after you message them five times. So might have to learn the art of the follow up, but Maddie's definitely down to help out. But anyways, Maddie, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to do this. I know I learned a ton, and the audience is going to learn so much too. It just was awesome getting to have you on and getting to talk with you in a little bit longer form like this. But thanks again, and that wraps what we got for tonight.
It was my pleasure, Broxton. Go green.
Awesome, go white.